The realm of Asgard in the Marvel Universe is filled with fierce, noble warriors and beautiful goddesses, warriors in their own right. One of those is the stunning and regal Lady Sif. Let's talk about her, but before we do, thanks for watching JLS Comics. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. I do upload videos just like this every week. Let's jump into our story. Like many heroes of the Marvel pantheon of Asgardian gods, Lady Sif is derived from real Norse mythology. Sif is the singular version of Sifjar, a word that translates to, quote-unquote, to marry. And in fact, in Norse mythology, Sif was married to none other than the mythological version, the original version that is, of Thor. Much like her inspiration, Lady Sif and the gods of Asgard were created in Marvel Comics lore by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as they sought to one-up themselves after the creation of Galactus. Greek and Roman mythology was well known, so they turned to Norse mythology for their inspiration. The Lady Sif of Marvel Comics first appeared in 1964's Journey into Mystery with issue 102. And since those early days, she's continually vied for the heart of Thor, oftentimes in direct competition with Jane Foster. Sif was born as one of the Vanir of Vanaheim on the island of Lisi, near the castle of Aegir, god of the seas, and though this is known, her parents are not. Her birthplace is but one part of what was 9 realms, but now 10, now that heaven's been added, that are all connected by the world tree, Yggdrasil. Originally, Sif was the brother of Balder the Brave, but this was later changed to her being the sister of Heimdall, guardian of the Rainbow Bridge to Asgard. As a child, Thor and Sif met when they were very young, and from those early days, they were forever bonded in both story and heart. Sif would frequently play with Balder the Brave, Thor Odin's son, and Thor's adopted brother from Jotunheim, the land of frost giants, Loki Laufeyson. She enjoyed watching a not-yet-worthy Thor try to lift the hammer of Mjolnir. During those early days, Odin sent Thor, Sif, and Balder on a quest through the realms to gather 4 mystical objects to be used to create a magical sword. They needed a scale from a dragon, a feather from a snow eagle, a jewel from the mine of Genia, and a vial of water from the lake of Lilitha. Loki showed up to tell the trio that the Norn queen, a villainess named Karnilla, was marching on Asgard. So they went back to the city to help defend it, and Thor was nearly killed in the ensuing battle when Karnilla shot an arrow through the god of thunder's chest. And it was Sif who saved him by mixing her tears in the lake of Lilitha. Also, when she was young, the storm giants, King Rugga, kidnapped Sif and brought her to Hela as a prisoner and as trade for his own immortality that she promised to him. This upset Thor enough that he raised Mjolnir for the first time ever, finally worthy enough, and he went to King Rugga, who told him that Hela, goddess of death, offered him immortality in exchange for Sif. So Thor immediately went to Hela and offered himself in her place. Hela was impressed with Thor's selflessness, his worthiness, and ended up letting them both go. Sif had beautiful, long, flowing golden hair. One night as she slept, Loki cut her hair in a fit of jealousy. Facing the fury of Thor for doing this, Loki went to the dwarves Brock and Eitri to make Sif a new set of hair. And they made her a golden wig, but when Loki didn't pay, whether by accident or by design, we don't know, but it is Loki, the dwarves decided to spin ebon steel into enchanted hair from the blackness of night, which when placed on her now bald head is when her locks went from blonde to black. Sif's parents were tired of her vanity after this, so they sent her off for training. Sif proved to be a fierce and noble warrior, becoming goddess of the harvest and of the hunt, and rivaling even that of the legendary skill of Brunhilde the Valkyrie. She went on as the sole girl in class to join the Asgardian warrior school, and from there was awarded the title of Shield Maiden. She was the only girl at school, of course, until Brunhilde and Amora the Enchantress both showed up at the school as students. At one point, Odin sent his son Thor to Earth, where he fell in love with Jane Foster, and this split in this distance effectively ended his relationship with Sif. And it wasn't until Thor brought Jane to Asgard in the feet of Odin for testing before marriage that he was reunited with Sif. Odin had sent Jane back to Earth after she failed one of his tests of bravery, when she panicked against a fearlord known as the Lurking Unknown. So Odin banished Jane from Asgard back to Earth, and then had Thor and Sif go and defeat the Lurking Unknown, hoping they would rekindle their flame. She was also given the armor of the Destroyer, which she used to help defeat a villain called the Wrecker. But the armor took over her and fought with her trapped inside against Thor. And Karnilla then asked Thor for help to take out Ulik the Troll, and he said okay, as long as you can free Sif from the Destroyer armor. That's when Loki stole Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, and nearly killed his foe, who'd reverted back to his human persona of Donald Blake now that he didn't have the hammer with him. So Sif had to defend Donald Blake from Loki, and she nearly died, but Donald Blake, a physician, was able to operate on her to save her. Once Thor got his hammer back, they went back to Asgard to fight villains like Mangog and later even the demon Surtur. On one mission on Earth, Sif went missing, so Thor had traveled to Midgard to try to find her, and he found her inside of an energy barrier around the Atomic Research Center, a prisoner of the mutates. They passed through time and learned that they were in a future ravaged by nuclear war. And there, Sif and Thor battled Pluto, the god of death from Greek mythology. And then they figured out that the Atomic Research Center had within its walls a golden cocoon, the incubator of Him, also known as Adam Warlock. When Him awoke, he took Sif prisoner. And Thor battled with him and let the warrior madness overtake him, leveling Thor up in his power immensely, so much that he was able to defeat the powerful Him, and he was able to rescue Sif. But Odin banished Thor from Asgard again for succumbing to the madness. When Odin went into Odin's sleep, Loki claimed the Odin ring and took over Asgard, and then Loki used the ring to force Sif to marry him. Later, Sif was imprisoned in Zor, the god jewel, along with Karnilla, and so Thor had to travel into the heart of the Dark Nebula to free them. Later, another Fearlord named Dweller in the Darkness, relative to both Despair and Nightmare, nearly claimed the life of Jane Foster by influencing her to try to commit suicide. And she nearly did, but she survived, though she was dying at a hospital. And so Sif used the rune staff of an Elder of the Universe named the Possessor and was able to merge her life force with Jane's body in order to save her. She wanted to help Jane, of course, but she also wanted to figure out why Thor loved this mortal woman so much. And it worked. She saved Jane, but then Jane was trapped in a pocket dimension created by the rune staff, with Sif trapped in her body, so it was up to Sif and Thor to save Jane again. And so during this time, the spirit and life force of Sif was in Jane. It was also around this time that Sif was using her enchanted sword to slice into reality, cleaving portals and doorways into the fabric of space and time through which she could travel and pass back and forth. And speaking of the sword, as Thor fought to fight Mad King Odin, the Grand Vizier gave Jane Foster Sif's sword, since she already had Sif's spirit in her. And when she did this, Lady Sif appeared, with Jane still trapped away, hidden for quite some time actually, until they were able to rescue her. Later, an alien named Spore took Sif captive, and so Thor and the Warriors 3 quested in the cosmos to track down Spore and rescue Sif. And later, when Thor was defeated by Arthur Blackwood, the Crusader, Sif took him back to Asgard to be healed by Odin. In another story, Sif succumbed to the influence of Dracula, Lord of the Vampires, but Thor was able to defeat him and free Sif. And just a couple issues after that, Sif gave Thor an ultimatum. She wanted him to leave Midgard behind and return to Asgard with her, something that Odin had been waiting for forever for him to finally decide on. Then, legendary writer Walt Simonson took Sif off the rails on the crazy train when he had her fall in love with a horse. Well, not quite. In Asgard, after Beta Ray Bill and Thor dueled in Odin's contest, they saw Lady Sif riding out for battle in full armor, and upon seeing Bill, she was immediately intrigued and attracted to him, though she didn't know why. After Bill got his hammer Stormbreaker, he told the Asgardians that he needed to go defend his people, the Corbinites, from a demon attack, and so Thor and Sif traveled with Beta Ray Bill. And in the midst of the battle, Bill and Sif were drawn to each other. And in a fight, Thor hit Sif, and it was traumatic for her, but it was because he was under a spell cast by Lorelei, sister to Amora the Enchantress. So Sif and Bill went to Midgard, Earth, together, working out their adventures and their feelings enough so that she'd come to forgive Thor for hitting her. They fought villains like the Titanium Man, the Green Liberation Front while on Earth, and just so it's not too weird, she did tell Balder later on that her feelings and love for Bill were on a purely platonic level. Much later after this, Seth, the god of death, came to attack Asgard, so Sif and many gods came to Asgard in his defense. It was here that the Celtic god Lear almost had Sif's hand in marriage. After a frost giant named Ymir attacked, initiating Ragnarok, Sif said that she would marry Lear under two conditions. The first was to find where Thor went to, which they did, recovering him and Hercules from the Black Galaxy. And the second condition was that he would have to defeat a champion of Sif's choosing in combat. And she actually chose herself, and she defeated him, avoiding marriage. And this is when Sif and Thor became close again, and they went back to Earth. But Odin replaced Thor with a guy named Red, and thus began a cycle of love spats and jealous fights. Not long after all this, Sif and Balder traveled to the new homeworld of the Corbinites, Beta Ray Bill's race, and reunited with Horse Thor briefly before leaving once more. And later, Sif found feelings for Eric Masterson, an Earthling who held Mjolnir, and the power of Thor She went to the realm of Mephisto to try to rescue him, and Mephisto manipulated Sif into fighting Eric Masterson and Balder. It was during this mission that she got a costume change, and Eric gave her a leather jacket, his favorite coat, to keep, and they departed, successful in their mission, but now just friends. Sif then fought with Pluto as Thor did years before, and Thor had succumbed to a madness, a dark Valkyrie manifested as the personification of his illness. This dark mind Valkyrie wanted him to attack Asgard and all the realms and burn it to the ground, and Sif convinced Odin to let her find a cure for Thor. Beta Ray Bill was back, and Mad Thor struck Sif down, and then Bill, just as the Silver Surfer showed up. But that was resolved too. And later, Thor fought with Red Navel in a ferocious battle that almost destroyed the Rainbow Bridge. And after Odin reaffirmed that Red was his son, surprise, and a Thor of Asgard, Thor and Sif left Asgard and went back to Earth. In one story, Sif and Thor were in New York enjoying a nice dinner out on the town when they were attacked by the War Machine. While in New York, a dark elf named Curse took over Hela's domain along with Lorelei, and Curse sent Hela's legions to try to recover Malekith the Accursed. But he was being tricked and thought, by trick of illusion, that Thor was Malekith, so he attacked with the Midgard Serpent, Fafnir the Giant, Fafnir the Dragon, Ice Giants, and others which Thor and Sif had to fight off. And that's when the High Evolutionary and his God Pack showed up to help Sif and Thor, and they were quickly reinforced by the Warriors 3, Beta Ray Bill, and Balder the Brave. And during the battle, Sif and Jane were crushed under the rubble of a collapsed building, but they were okay. That's when Hela recalled her forces with the agreement that Thor would go with her to Hell and that Sif would not try to rescue Thor. Around this time, Lady Sif was also on Earth in the identity of a SWAT police officer named Erica Velez. Later, a dark god named Pericus appeared before Thor and tricked the god of thunder by showing him an illusion of Sif captured and in imminent danger. Thor went back to Asgard and found Sif chained up. Dark gods had taken over Asgard and imprisoned her. Thor then went and got Hercules to help him, and when Sif was freed from her bonds, she also joined him in the fight against these dark gods. And after this, Odin grew tired of battle and retreated to his palace for his Odin sleep. In his stead, he appointed Lady Sif as regent and ruler of Asgard. After one cycle, Loki initiated a new Ragnarok, and in the battle with Loki and his army, Sif lost an arm as she defended Ymir Krull, a cemetery for the dwarves of Nidavellir, whose door is made from the bones of Fing Fang Foom, and where Eitri was laid to rest. Brunhilde the Valkyrie rescued Sif, but she was later killed, so Sif rode with the Valkyries into a battle wielding Brunhilde's sword in her honor. Ultimately, Sif died next to Volstagg as the rest of Asgard fell. Eventually, the cycle of Ragnarok was broken, and Asgard and the gods were reborn, their home now floating above the American state of Oklahoma. The gods were resurrected, seemingly except for Sif, but after looking, Thor found Sif reconstituted. However, this turned out to be Loki in her female body, and not the real Sif. It turns out that Sif's life force was back, but she was inside of an elderly and dying lady named Rose Chambers while Loki used Sif's body. Thor was able to free Sif from this bodily prison just before Rose passed away. Again banished from Asgard, Thor and Sif went to Oklahoma, and she checked into a hotel with him, using the pseudonym of a supermodel named Sylvan. In 2010, Lady Sif was trying to live a mortal life in Broxton, Oklahoma, when Beta Ray Bill and his Corbinite girlfriend Tiasha Ra burst through the door of her watering hole looking for help for Thor. And Thor was unavailable, so Sif decided to help him defend Bill's sentient ship Scuttlebutt from alien attackers, diseased space pirates. The infection got inside of Sif, but she fought it off and stabbed the apparent leader through the chest, nearly to the hilt, and then hacked the rest of the nest down. Sif was also one of the warriors defending Asgard during a 2010 event called Siege, when Norman Osborn ordered Taskmaster to send his forces against the city. An Asgardian named Sigurd cast a spell that caused Asgardians to forget who they were, and so now Sif was teaching mixed martial arts classes at a church and going by the name Tiffany, but she would later clear her mind. Then Sif decided that she wanted to be a better warrior, to serve Asgard better, and with enough skill and force to win her fights. Sif was cursed by Arndis, the teacher, with a Berserker incantation that triggered her madness. And when she arose, Sif took the head of Arndis in one blow with her sword. And as she rode into Asgard on her mighty black steed, she clashed swords with Fandral, cleaving his favorite blade in half. She carelessly tossed the broken blade to Volstagg's daughter, and then fought her own brother Heimdall in the Hall of Heroes before he transported her to an unknown realm, an island dimension, to battle with giant robot monsters. And awash in that creature's blue blood, she clashed with other barbarians until she realized that they too were Asgardians, stricken with Arndis' Berserker curse years ago. In a fight with a blob creature, they were all transported to Earth in New York City, where Sif and the Berserkers ran into Superior Spider-Man, and together they fought a horde of spider monsters. But now being back on Earth and not in that other realm allowed her to go to Oklahoma and charge on the Rainbow Bridge into Asgard to find her brother Heimdall, and she decapitated her brother Heimdall, shockingly. But it turned out that that was a fake Heimdall made of sand by the occupiers of Asgard. She confronted the imprisoned Erndis, who told Sif that all she gave her was permission to vent her frustration, that she got her strength but already had the heart and wisdom. Those were already hers. The lake monster started taking over the people of Broxton, Oklahoma, the town beneath Asgard, with help from the bloodthirsty Berserkers, so Sif then fought with them. Sif then came to the realization that she wasn't alone and that Asgardia was and should always remain the source of her strength. And to conclude that arc, Sif had a friendly snowball fight with the kids of Broxton. Never happier, she said, smile and a snowflake gracing her face. Soon afterwards, Gaia the All-Mother fell ill in Sif's arms. Jane told her to quarantine Gaia, so Tony Stark said she could use an Avengers Deep Space Monitoring Station orbiting around the planet Mars. Very quickly after they arrived, Beta Ray Bill showed up in Scuttlebutt, his ship, as it was intertwined with an alien vessel, and they slammed into Stark's asteroid station. Bill's friend Tiasha Ra was thrown from the ship in the collision and crashed. Tiasha Ra died and Scuttlebutt was gone. But then, Tiasha's body was arisen with Scuttlebutt inside of Tiasha, and Sif attacked her, trying to protect Bill. And Sif went for a spacewalk outside the space station, and she got trapped out there. And the story ended with Sif talking reason to the alien ship through Tiasha, but that's how the alien ship released its hold, and it flew away, and both Gaia and Tiasha were saved. Sif was also one of the Horde of Asgard to confront Angela in Limbo, along with Odinson, the Warriors 3, and a few others, and Angela, Asgard's assassin. During the War of the Realms, Sif was on the Strike Force Avengers along with Captain Marvel, Deadpool, Venom, Winter Soldier, Captain Britain, and Weapon H, and Black Widow as they continued to fight against Malekith's forces. Deadpool kept calling her Asgard Lady. She was then with Asgard, Okoye, and Punisher, and the Asgardians of the Galaxy in Nairobi, Kenya, fighting invading forces from heaven. Sif was in Jane Foster's Valkyrie Jane Foster series, protecting the Rainbow Bridge, although she was consumed by a primordial anti-life being known as Rakva. In Donny Cates' 2020 run on Thor, Lady Sif helped Thor transport planetary inhabitants before Galactus fed on their planets. When a Galactus Herald powered Thor and Beta Ray Bill fought, Lady Sif slammed her Rainbow Bridge down between them. And aiding Bill told Thor to stop his insanity, and the only way to get to Bill would be through her. Thor threw Mjolnir at Sif, but she slammed the Rainbow Bridge down on it, which transported the hammer away from the battlefield. And Sif was able to calm Thor down and then took Beta Ray Bill back to Asgard to heal. And as Thor continued his quest with Galactus against the Black Winter, Sif stood vigilant and waiting for word from her king. And so she remains to this day, seer of all, defender of the Rainbow Bridge and all of the 10 realms, protector of Earth, and a fan favorite to many. And where will she show up next? That's a wrap on this one, my friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and you'll be one of the first to know when I upload videos just like this each and every week. I'm Jesse, this is JLS Comics, and I'll see you soon.